We're here with the Naples Daily News Editorial Board, and welcome Todd Allen, who's running for the East Naples Fire District.
Thank you for having me.
Todd, can you take the first couple of minutes here and
Sure.
kind of introduce yourself to folks who are not familiar with who you are?
Sure. My name's Todd Allen. I'm a local attorney. I came down here about 7 years ago, graduated from law school at Ave Maria School of Law, decided to stay in Naples, loved the beach weather, and stayed in Naples and bounced around with a firm or two, and finally just opened up my own law firm. I'm partnered with a gentleman. We have 2 lawyers and a relatively small law firm, but we're making waves. And I just decided I became interested in the consolidation argument, and became fascinated with that. And when the seat came up for election, I decided to run. Was an advocate of consolidation, both with East Naples and Golden Gate, and East Naples and North Naples. I think consolidation across the board makes sense for the citizens of Naples. So that's basically why I'm in the race.
You mentioned you came here 7 years ago. Where did you come from?
I'm originally from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Did you come to go to law school at Ave Maria?
I did. I came to go to law school.
Are you a resident of East Naples, or where?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Seems to be consolidation seems to be the issue of the day in the race. Can you describe the advantages as you see it to East Naples voters of consolidation?
The biggest and most glaring benefit to me is response times. Response times across the county are really in question. The Sheriff's Department took that lead on creating the joint interlocal agreement to share boundaries and to improve response times. And I think including as part of the consolidation, the response times will improve across the county, and that's also important to me. The next probably equally important aspect of consolidation is the cost benefit. I mean, we're working on economies of scale here, so if we can do more with less money and save the taxpayers, why wouldn't we do that?
As far as response times goes, if you look at the sheriff's proposed system of closest unit response, wouldn't that be response times be improved whether you consolidate it or not? Everybody would sort of be one team in terms of getting the closest unit to the next emergency, regardless of what it says on the side of the truck.
Yeah, I think it would to a certain extent. I think that the issues with the city obviously are making that complicated. But yeah, I think that the response times would improve with the sheriff's proposal. But I also think that when we're sharing staff, we're sharing trucks, that makes the response time even better.
Relative to the financial end of it, East Naples stands a situation right now with not a lot of debt for the district.
Sure.
Golden Gate has some debt with the district. The
Sure.
two consolidate. How does that become one big debt? Is there a way to structure the debt so that the East Naples voters who are now sort of debt free don't get saddled with that?
Well, I think there would have to be some sort of scaling in the debt relative to the expenses that are incurred with the consolidation. But I think ultimately, in order for this to work, East Naples may have to assume some of that debt as part of the consolidation. But I think that whatever debt it does assume will be offset by the savings that it has as part of the consolidation.
Well, when you say East Naples would have to assume some part of the debt, apparently you have some idea in mind of what it should pay?
No, I think that's something that the Fire Commission would have to examine closely and determine what would be a fair share. It's certainly something that both Golden Gate and East Naples would have to consider. I don't think East Naples should assume all of the debt, but I think assuming some of it to make this an easier transition makes sense.
I take it then you're recommending voters approve the consolidation?
Certainly.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that you started a new law firm. What the name of the law firm is?
Lindsay and Allen, PLLC.
And what was the law firm you were with before that?
Godia, Damsick, and DeBost.
Is that the law firm your opponent, one of your opponents is working for?
Yeah.
What was your familiarity with him when you were both at that law firm?
I work closely with Stan. Stan's a good man.
So why run against him, or why is he running against you?
That's a good question. I was in the race before Stan was. But either, you know, if I don't win, I would prefer that Stan win, because I think Stan has the moral character that Collier County needs. I have no issues with Stan.
What's your issue with the incumbent Rob Boyer then?
Well, the incumbent was against consolidation before he was for it. I think he has buckled under maybe some union pressure and some outside pressure to now agree with consolidation, but initially he was against it.
And is that the sole reason you would be, that you're on the ballot against him, or are there other reasons as well?
There are other reasons. I think he has a somewhat of a hostile relationship with the union, and I don't know that the working relationship with the fire chief and the union is what it should be with a fire commissioner. This is just my observations from attending the meetings.
Okay. And what would how would you characterize your relationship with the union at this point?
We have a good relationship. I've had a chance to have lunch with the union representatives before. I understand their goals for consolidation, the things that they want to accomplish. And look, these people are not complicated. You know, fire commissioners need to train them, you know, make sure they have the proper training, pay them well, provide incentive and career advancement, and they'll do their job.
The firefighters back a few years ago in what we call the hard times, property values were way down, firefighters took a pay cut.
Sure.
Do they need to be brought up to where they were before? Do they need to be beyond where they were before, as if that had never happened and they'd have their normal raises in the meantime? Or what's the proper approach to compensation?
Compensation's a touchy subject because, you know, Golden Gate, there's a disparity between Golden Gate and East Naples firefighters, and I think there needs to be some scaling where those that are at the higher end maybe slow down their increases as those in the lower end speed up their increases to hit a level. If they should, you know, I don't know that we need to assume that these raises automatically go back up to what the difficult times, before the difficult times hit, but I think that certainly we should be focused on improving their compensation.
Have you received any endorsements?
I have not.
Do you know if the union's officially endorsing anyone in the race?
The union had initially spoken with me about endorsing me, and then when I left the law firm, they chose to endorse Stan.
Is Brian Cross also with that same law firm?
He is.
And a fire commissioner.
Right.
Is it just coincidence that three people with ties to that law firm are running for fire commissioner at one time, or was there an agenda?
No, I don't think there was an agenda from any of us. You know, when Brian ran and won, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to him about the issues and became interested in it. When I left the law firm, I think he talked to Stan, and Stan became interested, or Brian convinced Stan to run. So I don't think there's any agenda. I think it's, you know, just interested in the
People
topics.
that know each other,
Right.
talk to each other, get interested in the same things.
Certainly.
Did I hear you mention, I think I heard you mention consolidation with North Naples too? And how would you make North Naples see that that's in its best interest?
Well, I've already spoken with one of the commissioners at an event at the library the other night, and he indicated that he thought it made more sense for North Naples as well to consolidate. So, I mean, we're obviously early in the discussions, and I think it's something that North Naples could also benefit from consolidation through cost savings, sharing staff, sharing equipment, better response times. You know, if you look at some of the bigger cities in our country, they don't have multiple fire districts. If you look at Cleveland or New York, they all have one fire chief with plenty of management and staff to manage the entire fire district. I think it's an oddity that Collier County has as many fire districts as it has. I think it's top heavy, and there are some cost savings that can clearly be made through consolidation across the board with any district.
So would you say that your ultimate goal is to have all the county districts consolidated?
Yes. I'm always a fan of smaller government.
What about the situation down at Isle of Capri? It seems like it's mostly in the Isle of Capri people's hands, or the people down there, but ideally, what would you like to see happen down that way?
Well, I think Isle of Capri failed because of a lack of information. I mean, I think the voters, had they fully understand what was happening down there, that they would have consolidated. And I think they're now seeing some of the struggles and some of the uncertainties with their own financial picture and their own staff. So do I think the failure of the consolidation over there is the end of the story? I don't think so.
What's the next chapter in that story?
Well, I think the next chapter is, I think the Board of County Commissioners may, make that decision for the voters. That would certainly be my recommendation to the board.
East Naples Fire District 3 years ago was $3 million or so in debt, and there were firefighters being let go and et cetera, and now the district is solvent today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider that to be an accomplishment of that the incumbent had a role in, or do you think that it happened in spite of him, or regardless of whether he was
I
on
think
the
he
board?
was along for the ride. I think that the union played a significant part in pushing the consolidation. I think the current fire chief played a significant role in that. I don't know that the incumbent played any significant part in that. I think he was just along for the ride.
You made your name here in Collier County with the Bank of America case in which you defeated Bank of America. How much of your role as a lawyer would you bring to the board in terms of expertise? Where is your expertise in law?
I focus a lot on litigation, real estate, and you could call me a dirt lawyer. The experience I would bring to the commission is lawyers are trained to be analytical thinkers. We're very skeptical. We look at things and are immediately skeptical and try and figure out the underlying issue and come up with different solutions. I think I would bring that to the board, or to the commission. I think there's certainly a lot of issues that require that trained eye to look at something analytically.
Out in the along the Bayshore Drive area, East Naples covers some territory that's actually in the city.
Right.
And the city, as you mentioned, refusing to go along, at least so far, with the closest unit response. It seems like East Naples covering that area, maybe not getting anything in return. Should East Naples get something in return for that service?
I don't want this to be a quid pro quo. I don't want to force the city into the sheriff's department program. I think it's something that, because the only person that suffers when it turns into a quid pro quo are the citizens, and I don't want to see that happen. I think that there need to be some intense discussions with the city to try and come to some sort of solution that works for everybody and that doesn't put citizen safety at risk.
As far as the equipment that the district has and the number of stations and where they're situated, can you talk a little bit about how you feel the district is set up or where it needs to grow?
Well, East Naples is forced with improving, or at least considering building a management center where the staff and the fire chief reside. I think consolidating with Golden Gate, that kind of management center building is already established. That larger firehouse is already established, and consolidating with them would save that expense from us having to build it. And I think the last I'd heard, there had been, I believe, $7 million budgeted to build this building. If we can avoid that expense and consolidate with Golden Gate and move the management staff into that larger firehouse, why wouldn't we?
And then, with considering growth towards the east, are there new stations on the horizon that you either approve of or don't approve of or advocate for?
I really haven't. I haven't been presented with any facts or issues on placement of firehouses and the need for new firehouses. I'm certainly not opposed to looking at it if it becomes an issue.
What kind of job is the chief doing?
I think the chief's doing a fantastic job. I think he's, along with the union spearheading the consolidation, I think he's doing a great job.
If the consolidation were to go through over time, what would that do to the combined boards? Does it become one board with 8 people on it, or does certain commissioners have to give up their posts?
Yeah.
How does that work? How does it play out?
Certain commissioners, I believe, I haven't looked at the legal side of this, would have to give up some of their posts. I think it would be something the boards would have to address individually and then come to some sort of understanding that who has to go or who's staying. But
Theoretically, you could be advocating yourself out of a job.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm not running for this position to be a career politician. I have a career. I enjoy my career. This is something I want to do for the county, the people who live there, and also for my family.
You don't want to be a career politician, then why are you running for this? Are you looking to run for one term and get out, or what's your motivation there?
I think if we could make some serious progress towards consolidation with North Naples in my first term, I wouldn't see a need for a second term.
Is the North Naples consolidation a higher priority to you than it should have been with Golden Gate?
No, I think Golden Gate is necessary, and I think it's a good first step. But I think seeing this through to the logical end requires, or would suggest, that consolidating with North Naples would be the next step. What I don't want to have happen is us consolidate with Golden Gate, and that'd be the end of the story, because I think there's more work to be done.
What about in terms of expanding out toward Fiddler's Creek? Some of the folks out there want to join the fire district in East Naples. What's your viewpoint in terms of?
I would like to see that happen. I think the people out there are entitled to have the response times and the support that would come with being supported by East Naples. So I would support that. I know that the current commission is looking at legislative changes to make that happen, and I would support those changes.
So how do you bring like Ochapi and Isles of Capri into this equation that you're seeing of one mass consolidated fire district?
How does it happen? Well, I think the change in the law and allowing Fiddler's Creek to move with East Naples, I think that's how we make that happen. The Isle of Capri, I think the Colorado County Commissioners are going to have to resolve that based on their own budgeting issues for that individual fire district. That's how I see it happening. I wish it was more smooth and more clean, and that it had been decided by the voters, but I think we're going to be forced to do it.
When you talk about one large unified fire department, would that include Marco and Naples?
Yes. That's probably not a popular topic with Naples, but I think that the citizens should have the chance to save through consolidation, and if that's consolidating with Naples, then absolutely. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. I doubt it will happen with the current Naples Council, but I would hope that something of that nature would happen.
Fire commissioners aren't compensated a lot, but they are compensated.
Mm-hmm.
Is that level about where it should be? Have you heard anything on the trail about increasing it, or?
It shouldn't be going anywhere. I heard at this last event that there were some discussions about increasing the retirement or retirement benefits for fire commissioners. That's disturbing to me on a number of different levels. I, as a fire commissioner, don't believe that I need county benefits, retirement benefits. I understand that may be statutorily required, but I think as fire commissioners we should waive that requirement. We're not the ones going to the buildings and saving people. So I work for a living. I do well. I should be able to provide for my own retirement.
If you were elected, would you have that option even to waive out?
That would be one of the first things I look at, is if I can waive it, and if I can, I would.
We're getting up to our 20-minute time allotment here. Are there any final comments or anything you'd like to add to what you've said to us here so far?
You know, I'm a conservative in nature. I believe that smaller governments do better and perform better for citizens. I believe that government should manage their affairs the way I manage my personal affairs and the way I manage my business affairs. That we spend the money that we have, we don't go into debt, and we look at the bottom line. And I think that those are all traits that I can bring as a fire commissioner to this commission.